Hello and welcome back to People to People through the HR Lens, our 10-part 2025 market update series, taking a comprehensive look into the leading HR trends impacting the Australian workforce today. I am Leanne Lazarus from the People to People Brisbane team, and on today's edition, we're going to be talking about how can companies safeguard themselves for the changes coming through. We are joined today by Jonathan Mamril, Director and Head of Employment Law at South Geldard Lawyers, and Nettie Herselman, Director of People Safe Queensland, to explore the critical connection between workplace culture and safety practices. What defines a strong safety culture? What are some of the legal risks of falling short? And what are the differences between covering public versus internal compliance? A recent survey of over 1,000 Australian workers revealed that 40% of people face moderate to high-level psychosocial risks at work. Company culture and safety culture are often seen as separate elements of a business, but in reality, they are deeply interconnected. A strong workplace culture fosters trust, accountability, and engagement. These are all essential ingredients for a proactive and effective safety culture. When employees feel valued, heard, and aligned with the company's mission, they are more likely to take ownership of processes, policies, and also safety practices, looking out for one another and contributing to a risk-free environment. Let's jump straight in to today's session. Starting with Nettie, thank you for joining. What is your definition of a safety culture, and how should it tie into the company culture?
Thank you, Leanne. That's a great question. And I'm sure with everything going on at the moment, and specifically with these three pieces that we'll be talking thoroughly about today, that this is at the topic of discussion on most boards and at most decision-making tables. So if we pause for a minute and we look at the safety culture and what those perspectives are around a safety culture, we really need to focus on the term having a safety-first mindset. And the safety-first mindset really intrinsically prioritizes the safety and the well-being of everyone while they're at work, and also creating those safe environments for people to put their hand up, to be able to safely say something's wrong. So similar to a company culture, the safety culture prioritizes safe work practices within everything in the entire organization. We look at policies, procedures, people practices, work practices, how we engage with each other, and of course, our safety behavior at work. It is intrinsic to our operations. So it's beyond being only the first on the topic of agenda when it comes to management meetings. It should effortlessly focus within our company culture. If we look at things like trust and safety and integrity, our safety culture should just mirror all of those values and perspectives at work. The worry is if a company has a disengaged company culture, it would be so much harder to integrate the safety culture because people would already be disengaged from things like values, mission, and vision. Essentially, if we focus on the safety-first mindset, that should be our overarching focus to embed the culture within company.
Perfect. And when it comes to comparing public compliance versus internal compliance, what would your take be on this?
Interesting concept, and one that I've sort of been blind to till recently when engaging in a podcast. So public compliance occurs when employees follow protocols purely because they think they have to, right? They either fear victimization or they don't want to stand out as the proverbial guy not wearing the hard hat when he's supposed to. Or sometimes it runs deeper. They worry that they'll be victimized by the company, that there'll be a retribution. So essentially, they do the right thing because they think they have to, whereas that internalized compliance piece really sits at the heart of an employee that's serious about their own safety, but also the safety of their colleagues and their workmates. It means that this person will do and follow safety protocols and practices because they honestly believe that it's the right way, that it's the right thing to do, and they are serious about their own safety and the safety of others in the workplace. So really, as leaders and those that lead decision making within the organization, then we would be looking to embed that culture of internalized compliance.
Fantastic. Now, I'm going to jump over to Jonathan, who has been with us before and is the Director and Head of Employment Law at South Geldard Lawyers. From a legal perspective, Jonathan, when we talk about a safety culture or a safe environment, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, some really good points from Nettie. I suppose from a legal perspective, there are a few issues. So obviously you've got the obvious one, which is your Workplace Health and Safety Act in each jurisdiction, in each state jurisdiction. And then of course you've got relatively new legislation, psychosocial risks and hazards, and you've also got workers' compensation. So they're probably the main ones to consider. But also where some of these issues will also permeate when we talk about health and safety and health and safety culture is probably going to be in areas such as general protections, performance management, dealing with misconduct, investigations, and how that impedes overall performance and productivity. Probably another aspect to also consider from that, other than the operational side, is also from a board level as well. So what are those duties, in particular general duty of care, but not only that, but also how is that going to be worked through in a board agenda in terms of priorities and importance. If you've got specific industries such as construction or building construction or mining or manufacturing, then of course, maybe the physical side is probably going to be of utmost importance. Not to say that there's a difference in importance, but maybe there's more of a priority. And then of course, with maybe office-based, there might be the mental illnesses and psychosocial. So that's probably that balance. And then of course, you've got the corporate responsibilities as well. So there's quite a few areas where workplace culture and safety practices sort of really align in different areas of employment law.
Perfect. So back to you, Nettie. So as Jonathan mentioned, there's a lot of legislation changes that have come through. From your perspective in that safety realm, how should companies be safeguarding themselves for the changes that have come through? And Jonathan mentioned that right to disconnect, psychosocial risks, sexual harassment, bullying. How should companies be safeguarding themselves?
Big work ahead, I think, Leanne, for most businesses, and certainly those that I have engaged with recently seem to be quite serious about getting started, or in the event that they've already gotten started, to really make sure that all of these legislative points are mirrored within their company protocols at the moment. And I just want to pause here for a minute, maybe just to remind leadership within companies to also look after their own well-being through this process of integration and implementation, because this is big. This is lots. It's impactful, and it's, as Jonathan has said, it spans throughout the business. It doesn't focus on one thing only. And while there is predominantly people as the commonality, it really should filter through the entire business, top down and back all the way up. So perhaps a suggestion would be, instead of focusing on each individual perspective or piece, maybe focus on the strong connection between all three. And that strong connection, the commonality, as I've said here, is people. People need to feel safe at work, regardless of the occupation that they've chosen, as their life work, as their career. So what are we doing around making people feel safe at work? All aspects of a person's well-being, psychological, physical, and more. And then in the event that something goes wrong, do they feel safe enough to put their hand up to say, this has happened to me at the hands of this person, without fearing victimization or without fearing that blame game? So the key priorities, I think, that leadership should be focusing on at the moment should be to thoroughly understand what these three pieces entail in themselves individually, but also as a collective approach. And then to ensure that those pieces can be integrated into the business. Now, the key here would be, where are we now? What is our point A? What is our point of departure, our present state? Where are we in terms of policies, procedures? Do our people know what they are, first and foremost? Do they know where to find them? And can they effectively and safely access the information to feel protected? So what is our present state? What is our point A? And what is our desired state? Where would we like to be? What is our point B? And then, of course, our little roadmap for success. Our roadmap will detail what the processes are that we need to follow to get to point B, what those very intimate and straightforward conversations are that we need to have with our people. Because in essence, when it comes to implementation, we can have all the bells and whistles in place. If our people don't intrinsically understand where to find the information to protect themselves, we've lost the game. So really looking at what needs to be done, where we are at the moment, so that we don't constantly duplicate what we have in place already, and then where would we like to be, and what is the time frame for implementation and launch.
Very, very valid points. I'm going to head over to Jonathan, and Nettie sort of lent on the fact that when it comes to safety culture, it's not just something that sits at one level. It's from the top down, bottom up, from side to side. So in relation to those internal champions for driving a safety culture, from a legal standpoint, you've mentioned general protections, but in terms of repercussions or penalties that could be given out for non-compliance, who could be impacted and what could that look like for them?
I think it's important to understand that you got your baseline, which is just your legislative requirements. Yeah, so your requirements under, say, for example, workplace health and safety. Let's just take the workplace health and safety legislation. There's a general duty of care. Yeah, so that's your baseline. But from there, when you sort of build on top of this, you do have what's practical. What can we practically implement? Just before that, you've got maybe tender requirements. Maybe you have a requirement under some ISOs, whatever that is. And then after that, then you've got potentially what is practical. What can we potentially do relatively quick, relatively easily? What can we prioritize that has the most impact, as Nettie has said? And then from there, then it's about, okay, what's ideal and what's best practice. And all the way through, probably the main aim of the game is to get into the prevention space, as opposed to just reactionary. Reacting really well to an incident or having process and policy deal with incidents is absolutely integral. Of course it is. But when you actually have a look at what a regulator will look at, and even in other types of jurisdictions, what they'll actually look at is what was actually in place prior to any incident or complaint that occurred. So if we take that back to an individual will also have a situation where they've got their own obligations, such as a PCBU, or person conducting a business or undertaking. And attached to that are things such as fines, penalties, and in Queensland in particular, you even have to go as far as industrial manslaughter as well.
Fantastic. So to wrap things up, Nettie, if you were able to talk to whether it be HR or leadership teams today and give them a cheat sheet from an organization's perspective on how to strengthen their safety culture, what would your bullet points be?
Demonstrate a very strong commitment to embedding the safety culture into the core values of the company. They don't sit aside from each other, they're integrated as one. So don't just put together a set of rules, like Jonathan has said. Really deeply consider what this legislation means and how it's going to be implemented throughout the fabric of your business, not just in certain policies and procedures or ways of working. Leadership consistently should model the safety behaviours that they so desperately want to see. So by leading by example and by not walking past the lack of standards or those demonstrating standards that aren't approved or that aren't in place, and really challenging those bad behaviours or those standards that shouldn't be in. They lead by example and they want others to follow, or they will make others want to follow. And holding each other accountable, I think, is key to this process being launched and integrated and implemented successfully. So really looking at what are we going to be doing, how soon are we going to be doing it, and are we 100% certain that this is going to safeguard ourselves and our people legislatively from a legal perspective, but also look after the well-being of our people, and then duplicating that intention clearly in our policy, procedure, guideline framework, and in our systems.
Fantastic. And Jonathan, from that legal perspective, what should HR be doing to safeguard themselves and the organisations today?
Well, the basic tenet of workplace health and safety really is the well-being of staff, the well-being of someone. So just to be able to go to work, so and they come home safe and sound, or to be able to be productive or enjoy their work that they do and potentially put discretionary effort. Okay, I mean, that's the basic tenet of workplace health and safety legislation. That truly is. So if you really bring that down to human resources and very much people and culture as well, anyone that sort of manages the people side of a business, health and safety and HR doesn't have to be distinct. And I know for a lot of people that's in their portfolio anyway, and for some it's very separate, and I completely understand the reasons why, but they can actually flow together. And I know there's difficulties because you may have one side that is very regulatory heavy, very black and white, and then you may have another side which needs to be more practical. What the key part is, in my view, Leanne, is communication. So communicating the value of both and linking that not just with legislative compliance and making sure we just do the absolute basics. I think that's just the norm. You're going to be pulled up on that anyway. I think that the main point is, how do you align that with what is practical and what is commercial, and also what brings value. That's the main key tenets of health and safety and HR and how that works together. Now, of course, from a particular HR perspective, there are, of course, particular legislation and also some cases, but legislation that also permeates through. And as I've talked about that previously already, so you have psychosocial risks and hazards, general protections, right to disconnect, sexual harassment, workplace bullying, and a lot of those areas have seen quite a lot of change. So yes, one, understanding those changes, understanding those obligations, ensuring that your team is prepared, putting all the policy procedures, getting the training for the management team. But to get actual buy-in, you need to link that together with some communication. And that could just be simple. It could be very simple. Keep it really simple. It could just be, we're going to review the policies and we're going to run a manager training workshop on this to get an understanding. And then, of course, how to deal with the complaints and how to roll through those policy procedures. Keep it super simple to start off with, and then you can build on top of that. Then you can start getting a little bit more nuance. Of course, but for particular industries that deal with maybe, say, mental health is a huge issue. I'm thinking call centers, anyone in the health industry, allied health, NDIS. Yes, you've got to understand that's probably going to be a much bigger hazards, much bigger risks. So prioritize that. So you will need to balance that. You still need to have priorities, but I think that the key link is having that flow between health and safety and HR, and that communication link as well. I think they're the key parts, because the legislative side of things really has to be your baseline. That's what you build on top of. After that, it's about reaction and then prevention. Prevention is probably the key part if you really want to get to that space of not having these big claims, and definitely don't want to be dealing with a criminal code when it comes to industrial manslaughter either.
Correct. So in short, really be more proactive than reactive when it comes to this.
Well, proactive is going to be a key part. Being reactive, you'll definitely be judged on. There's no doubt about that. Being reactive, you'll be judged on what you've done, how you've dealt with an investigator, what information you've had, what documentation had. But actually, if you think about it, what's done is already done. So if you've got those plans in place, if you've got, just basic stuff, insurance in place, right? If you've got workshops done in place, if you've got, manager training, in place, you've got policy procedures in place, like these are basic elements. That's what's going to be looked at, how far has that gone? And I think the other key part is, don't just rely upon software. It's very easy to do that. And software makes everything easy. technology is great, love technology, but let's not just rely upon that. Put a little bit of that human element on top of that, check it, double check it, make sure people are going through the training, make sure it's not just tick and flick exercise, because you need to be able to answer this particular question. That question is, what have you done?
Correct. I'd like to say a very heartfelt thank you to both Nettie and Jonathan for joining us today and sharing their knowledge with us on this vital topic. We will share some details should you want to get in touch with either Nettie from People Safe Queensland or Jonathan from South Geldard Lawyers. But thank you so much for joining us today, and don't forget to register for future editions. Our People to People 2025 Employment and Salary Market Report is now here. This year's report delivers the insights you need to remain competitive, attract top talent, and align with the latest salary trends. Discover what's next in recruitment and workforce planning and position your business for success in 2025. If you are looking to stay ahead of the market, then get in touch with our People to People team today and register to get your copy. Lastly, if you are looking to grow your HR career or build a strong, effective team, I am here to help. We connect with you with the right opportunities to set you up for success in 2025. Contact me, Leanne Lazarus, today at leanne@peopletopeople.com.au or on 0431 819 724. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to your feedback and for joining us for the next edition.